On March 31st, 1992, the U.S. Navy decommissioned the USS Missouri, the last of the Iowa-class battleships. The Mighty Mo, also known as BB-63, gained immortality by being the host for the signing of the Japanese surrender in World War II on September 2nd, 1945. The fact that President Truman was from Missouri probably had some influence on the choice of the ship for the signing. The Missouri now resides at Pearl Harbor, Oahu, Hawaii, as a museum memorial ship. First fielded during World War II, the Iowa class was an improvement over the South Dakota and North Carolina class ships that had been the U.S. Navy's first fast battleships with 16-inch main guns. The Iowa class ships were not only fast, going 32 to 35 knots depending on load, and well armored, with 12-inch belt, 19.7-inch turrets, and 7.5-inch deck, but also with the superb 16-inch 50-caliber rifled main guns, 9 guns and 3 turrets. It was the most effective battleship guns ever built. Capable of firing a 2,700-pound anti-armor shell whose solid steel nose cone could penetrate the armor of any other battleships ever built, meant they were the match of the larger Japanese 18-inch guns on the Yamato class. The mighty Bismarck and Tirpitz of the German Navy did not have quite the speed and only a little over half the range of the Iowas. Although heavily armed with anti-aircraft weapons, the superb British King George V class ships, 5 of them, were likewise not as fast, had less armor, and were only armed with 14-inch main guns, meaning they still did not quite match the mighty Iowas. The HMS Vanguard, Britain's last battleship, was not built in time for World War II action and still only had 15-inch guns. The Japanese Yamato class, consisting of the Yamato and the Musashi, were by far the largest, most heavily armored battleships ever built, and sported the biggest guns ever mounted on a ship, 18-inch guns firing a 3,000-pound shell. A good 5 knots slower than the Iowas, these Leviathans only had half the range. Furthermore, their radars were not up to American standards, and they lacked the massive amount of light 40mm and 20mm anti-aircraft cannons the Iowas bristled with. Another notable feature of the Iowa-class ships was their excellent anti-aircraft weaponry, notably 20 by 5-inch rapid-firing guns in 10 twin-gun turrets firing proximity-fused flak shells. For closer engagements, these ships were outfitted with 80 by 40mm Bofors cannons and 49 by 20mm Oerlikon cannons, making them capable of putting up a wall of fire no other ship could match. Radar control made these guns quite effective, even at the longest ranges. Retired after World War II, all 4 Iowa-class ships, the USS Iowa, New Jersey, Missouri, and Wisconsin, were brought back for duty during the Korean War, and the New Jersey was brought back for use during Vietnam, incredibly firing 7 times more shells at Vietnam than she had fired in all of her World War II service. President Ronald Reagan recommissioned all of the ships again in the 1980s as Cold War centerpieces, had them updated with surface-to-air missiles, Harpoon and Tomahawk anti-ship and anti-land cruise missiles, and gave them sophisticated anti-missile defenses. By this time, no anti-ship weapons in the Soviet armory were likely to be effective against such heavily armored ships, and tests after World War II had proven that even nukes had a hard time sinking battleships. After ill-considered and unauthorized experimentation with gunnery had caused an accident on the Iowa, the 4 great battleships were finally retired for good after service in the Persian Gulf and Desert Storm. As a question for my students and others, should the Iowa-class battleships be brought out of mothballs and be recommissioned for service today? Please let us know in the comments section below this video. If you liked this video and would like to receive notification of new videos, please feel welcome to subscribe to History and Headlines and become one of our patrons. Your viewership is much appreciated.